What is the Noveske Space Invader? Well, it's like the HK MP5 and the Q Honey Badger had a love child that was raised by wolves. That would be Noveske, then given a catchy name from an 80s video game that also pays tribute to the fact that it is a close quarters weapon. Since the Space Invader has both attributes from the Honey Badger and the MP5, two of my all-time favorite guns, I was excited as all the Glock fanboys when Glock announced they were coming out with a new gun, before everyone found out it was a 22. Also, to all the guys out there begging Q to make a 9mm version of the Honey Badger, this is pretty much it, and probably as close as you'll ever get. It has the exact same stock because Noveske is currently the only company that Q is allowing to use their stock. And a huge thanks goes out to Silencer Shop for helping me get my hands on a Space Invader. Be sure to go check them out, and if you're not using them to do your ATF paperwork, you are working way too hard. Noveske has spent the time figuring out how to make that shortened buffer tube work with a direct blowback system, and added actually a ton of cool features, making this an outstanding pistol caliber carbine. The Noveske Space Invader is packed with features like a Limp Bizkit concert in the early 2000s. Damn, I'm getting old. The key to the compact size of the Space Invader is the stock assembly from Q, which is much shorter than a traditional AR buffer tube. This causes some changes internally and externally. First off, the stock moves on these two rails and is activated by this button. The Space Invader has 3 positions for length of pull on the stock, whereas the Honey Badger only has 2. The stock moves on 2 rails that go into the frame much like an MP5. This is amazingly cool to see on an AR style rifle, however this requires the upper and lower to be machined out to receive those rails. I'm obviously a huge fan of this design. I actually got the Ghetto Blaster first, and then the Honey Badger, and now I've picked up the Space Invader as well. This is the same exact design as the Q Honey Badger, and this means that the Space Invader furniture is completely proprietary and will not work on a traditional upper and lower. These proprietary parts also mean that the Space Invader won't hinge open like a traditional AR. To disassemble, make sure the gun is empty, it's easier if the hammer is down, and the stock has to be in the rearmost position. Noveskes are tight, so you may need a punch to get the pin started, but remove both disassembly pins, keeping slight pressure rearward on the upper. Then slowly let the upper move forward, working the upper over the hammer. Let's take a quick look at these internals because they're pretty interesting. To make the 9mm work with this short of a buffer tube, Noveske had to use a 4-part buffer and spring assembly. You'll have your buffer, the first spring, which fits inside a coupler piece that goes into a larger spring, and then that goes inside the stock. Reassembly can be a little tricky, but basically what I do is put the front half of the spring assembly in the bolt and put the back half of the spring assembly into the stock. Then kind of guide the spring in with your hand, making sure that it doesn't get into a bind while you're working the upper over the hammer. Once you reach that point, just basically lock one of the pins and you're done. It's actually not that bad once you do it a couple times, and it is definitely one of those things that's harder to do on camera than it is to do without the camera. The Space Invader is roughly based off the Noveske Gen 4 lower, so basically meaning you'll have ambi controls. You'll have a nice Magpul 60-degree throw safety on both sides, a bolt release that you can hit with your trigger finger, and unique to the Space Invader is a paddle mag release just like the MP5. This is so cool and such a nice touch. I really like having both, the mag release in the traditional spot for an AR-15 and the paddle like an MP5, so whatever system you're used to, you can be right at home on the Space Invader. This brings up the magazines, and no, it does not take Glock mags. If you want something that takes Glock mags, there are many choices available. The Space Invader takes Colt mags, and this may shock a lot of you, but I actually prefer this. First of all, they look much better. The straight magazine gives the Space Invader and every other gun that uses it that obnoxious, I'm better than you and I know it look, and I kind of dig that. They load easier because they're straight and they're not at an exaggerated angle that can sometimes be difficult to get into the mag well. They're made of steel. Not every gun going forward from this point needs to take Glock mags, and now they are cheaper. When I built my own direct blowback 9mm AR a while ago, I chose to go with Colt mags, and back then the real downside was the cost. Back then they were insanely expensive, but since then great options from companies like C Products, ASC, and Brownells have come out making them virtually the same price or cheaper than the Glock mags. I saw where some reviewers said they were having mag-related malfunctions and issues. We primarily use the Brownells mags and the C Product magazines, and they work great. Also on the lower, you'll have a seriously flared out mag well sized perfectly to accept those Colt pattern mags, and a very nice Geisley Super MCX SSA trigger, pulling at just under 4 pounds. You'll also get a Noveske badged Geisley charging handle and Magpul Pro folding backup sights. Moving forward, you'll have a Noveske NHR handguard covering up one of Noveske's legendary 8.5-inch barrels, chambered in 9mm with a 3-lug machine directly onto the barrel, making it somewhat like, you guessed it, an MP5. This is actually really cool. I love 3-lug, and it is definitely the quickest way to attach a suppressor. Just push on, quarter turn, and that's it. Nothing is quicker. Only downside is 3-lug adapters for your suppressor can be a little expensive, and you may be suffering from a serious case of the brokeness after purchasing a Space Invader. Dimensionally, the Space Invader is also pretty close to the MP5. Collapsed, it measures 20.5 inches compared to the MP5's 20 inches. Fully extended, it measures 25.25 inches versus the 26 inches of the MP5. The Space Invader is overall full pound lighter than the MP5, weighing in at about 5 pounds, 5.5 ounces. Now that is absolutely a ton of stuff, and the Space Invader comes with just about everything but the kitchen sink. But it should come very well equipped for the price of admission, because like things that bear the Iron Cross and the Noveske name, the Space Invader is really nice, but it is also really expensive. Even with all that, I changed out a few things. I changed out the Magpul MOE grip for Reptilia Cqg Grip. These are somewhat new to the market and you may not have heard of them yet, but I think you'll be hearing a lot more soon. This grip is extremely comfortable and compact. It's more vertical, allowing you to get a grip higher up on the gun, and I love the size. They look small, but really when you put them in your hand, it just feels perfect, and the praise was universal from everyone that shot the Space Invader. I can see myself switching out a bunch of my grips to these. I also got a Reptilia co-witness mount for the Aimpoint Acro, and both have been flawless. We also used a bunch of silencers from the Cqg Grip Mod 9, Mod 9 SK, Dead Air Wolfman, and the Bowers Group Verse 375. All worked awesome and sounded great on the 8.5-inch 3-lug barrel. The Space Invader suppresses extremely well, it is very accurate, and just overall a complete blast to shoot. Let's talk about direct blowback 9mm ARs for a second, because for better or worse, as refined as it may be, at the heart of it, that's what the Space Invader is. I have an older direct blowback 9mm AR, and the performance of the Space Invader far exceeds that. Direct blowback 9s tend to need to be kept very clean to be reliable. My older AR9 at about 500 rounds starts choking up. The Space Invader did significantly better, but right around 1,000 rounds, most of that being suppressed, we started getting a few malfunctions.
Had our first malfunction.
Seriously?
Call it malfunction junction.
Oh, really?
On the last round, too.
Now that is way better than most AR9s that I've ever had the opportunity to play with, but maybe not quite as reliable as some other operating systems. But you should really be cleaning your guns before that point anyway. Another limitation of the direct blowback 9mm AR is a very heavy bolt, which gives the shooter the sensation of much greater recoil than expected as the bolt moves back and forth in the receiver. Noveske greatly improved on this as well. A typical AR9 blowback bolt weighs in at about 15.7 ounces. The Space Invader bolt only weighs in at 11.1 ounces, and that is a pretty significant difference and is very welcome when shooting the Space Invader. I say all that to make this point. The Space Invader is by far the best straight blowback 9 ever made in my opinion. However, it is still a straight blowback 9. That's not really a dig against the Space Invader, I just want you to know exactly what you're getting if you decide to drop this much coin on a subgun, because one thing the Space Invader is without a doubt, it is expensive. I'll tell you straight up, the Space Invader is a freaking awesome gun, and I am so happy I have one, no matter what the cost. And that's exactly what I tell myself every night as I eat my ramen noodles by candlelight. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices. It is by far the best direct blowback 9mm AR ever, and for all of you guys who have been begging Q for a 9mm Honey Badger, this is it, and you can get one right now. The Space Invader is probably as close to a 9mm Honey Badger as you'll ever see, plus it has so many really great features like the paddle mag release, tri-lug barrel, and collapsible stock, all borrowed from the MP5. And for all you guys out there who don't like paying for stamps on SBRs, there is a pistol version available. Slight word of warning though, at least at the time this video is being put out, there is no way to buy the stock assembly, so at least currently you can't Form 1 this and maintain the proprietary stock. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and a huge thanks goes out to Silencer Shop for helping me get my hands on a Noveske Space Invader. They have Space Invaders, a bunch of other cool guns, and of course, a huge selection of silencers, and if you're not using them to do your ATF paperwork, you're working way too hard. Guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. As always, we are working on some really big reviews that you won't want to miss. And if you want to know what those reviews are way before they hit the YouTube channel, check us out on Instagram and Facebook. There you can see what's being reviewed in real time. If you like what you see here and you want to help support Alabama Arsenal, the best possible way to do that is on Patreon. Every little bit helps and is greatly appreciated. There is also gear available right below the videos if you want to go out and represent. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching.
Hot mama! I like it.